Well, good Wednesday, guys and girls. It's good to be back with you here. I'm coming to you live from my classroom. Of course, this has been videotaped, so it's not really live for you, but I'm doing the lesson live, and I always enjoy doing some of our lessons that way, and so you'll get this type of presentation quite frequently. And as you can see, I've got a slide up on the screen that I'll be teaching from today, and just wanted to share a little bit of my own inside the classroom experience with you today. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay with the format that we started on Monday and Tuesday. I will primarily work here with that same type of format as we go through these next few days. So let's start today with the little mini lesson. I told you every day I would give you a kind of a mini lesson, and I will do that today on proofreading your writing. One of the things I have noticed about some of your writing, and by the way, the content on most of your writing has been really good. Excuse me. And it has, I've enjoyed reading about your favorite books, favorite movies, and as you develop your characters and the plots and so on have been very good. But what I am noticing is a tendency to be careless with some of the technical aspects of your writing and grammar, spelling, punctuation, and so on. Now, as I've said many times, obviously the goal of writing is being able to express yourself. You can do that without being 100% perfect in your grammar and your spelling and your punctuation. But there is also an aspect of that writing where you do need to be technically learning how to write correctly, as eventually you will be graded more and more on not just the content, which is always the primary concern, but also your ability to write things correctly. So let's talk about some keys. Number one, watch for words that are underlined in red and green. I told you this before. Our computers today are wonderful things. They all have spell check, grammar check, and so on it. So as you are creating your paper and you see words that are underlined with red squiggly lines, green squiggly lines, that's done that way for a purpose. Red underlines typically means that there's a misspelling. If you right-click on that word, it will give you the correct spelling. And obviously some of you are not doing that, and so the wording comes out incorrect. Also, if it's underlined in green, that often indicates some type of a grammar, punctuation type of issue that you need to correct, and you need to pay attention to those. So when you see those on your papers as you're writing, don't just blow them off and continue on and turn the papers in like that. Make the corrections before you submit the paper. Secondly, proofread your work out loud. I would encourage you to read your work out loud, either just to yourself, but oftentimes reading it to your parents, reading it to your older sibling, reading it to someone who will catch. Because what happens when you read your work out loud, and the reason I say out loud is because if you're reading out loud, you have to look on the words as you go. Sometimes reading silently, you'll skim and you'll miss something. So read your work out loud. By the way, here's a little clue too. If we didn't have spell check and so on, the way I learned to proofread a paper for spelling was to read the paper backwards, because if you read it backwards, you have to stop on every word. Your eyes can't flow over the words because it's out of order from what you've written. Today's computers take care of that stuff, but it was one way to proofread. So read your papers out loud. And number three, be sure to make the corrections before you hit the submit button. The spelling corrections, the grammar corrections, the punctuation corrections. Make those corrections prior to hitting the submit button and sending those in. And that way, when the papers come in, they will be at the best quality you can turn them in with, is our hope and goal, of course. All right, so that's your mini lesson for today. Let's look at vocabulary. One of the things I love about Excelsior is being a classical model school. So part of what we do is we teach you the Latin root for so many of our English words. English is a kind of I guess you call it a catch-all for bases and roots of our words. We have many different languages that contribute to our base of speaking and writing and so on. But probably it's easy to say that the greatest percentage of our words come from a Latin base. And that's one of the reasons we study Latin, and to some degree a little bit of Greek here as well. So as you are doing this, we want you to be able to learn, both in your Latin classes and in other classes in school, some of the Latin roots. So I'll give you two words today. I'm giving you one Monday and Tuesday. I'll give you two today. The first word is the Latin word ars, which is the word from which we get our word art. And the usage of that is words like artistic, artistry, artifact, things of that type, artificial, things of that. Those are words that come from that root word art. And the base Latin word is the word ars. Also, the second word is the word brevis. Brevis is a Latin word which means short. So we talk about something being brief. We talk about it being short. If we talk about something being abbreviated, we mean that it's shortened. So this comes from that Latin base, the word brevis, which means short. By the way, if you ever study, or maybe you have studied already, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, those four languages particularly are called Romance languages, but they're also called Latin-based languages because the vast majority, if not in most cases, all their words are derived from a Latin root word or Latin base. So if you're going to go on and study foreign languages, which you should, then obviously having a Latin base is going to be very, very helpful to you. So those two words today, hold on to those. We talked about two other words, on one Monday, one Tuesday, two today, and at the end of the week we'll talk about all of them, and then there will be some type of a little exercise to help me know that you've learned the words. All right. So lastly, let's talk about your assignment for today. You were to have read the first chapter of Animal Farm. Now, I did something very unusual here, and I did this for a purpose. I did not have you read the preface, the introduction of the book, prior to reading the book. And there was a reason for that, and it was because I wanted you to see the basic characters, because then when you read the preface, you can make some connections. So as you begin reading, as you read the preface for the homework assignment for today, it's about the same length as the first chapter, I think, page-wise. So it's very similar in its length. But the preface talks about why George Orwell wrote this book and what he based the book on. Animal Farm is what's called an allegory. Some people refer to it as a fable, but actually an allegory is something that is picturing a deeper principle. In this case, certainly a deeper situation. And as Orwell wrote this book, he was comparing some of the principles, some of the dangers, the traits of socialism, of communism, as it appeared primarily in Russia. And it talks about how Russia and the leaders of Russia, and you can see all that, I'm not going to give you any more, but just read the preface and you'll get a picture of that. And this is important because in our school, we combine ELA and social studies as what we teach on the same basic level. And so as we go into our social studies book and we get into that period of time from 1945 until the present day, we're going to get into a period known as the Cold War. The Cold War is that period of time where socialism began to take control of Europe and the United States and of some Western nations like England and France and so on. We're capitalistic countries. We're not socialistic countries. And there's a friction between those two philosophies of not just economics, but of government and so on. And so as we go through the Cold War period, you're going to hear a lot about socialism, communism, and how it spread in Eastern Europe. And we'll look at that as we go into our textbook. So Animal Farm works in very close connection with what we're going to be studying in our social studies book. So read the preface tonight. Take your time. Don't rush through it. Don't just skim it and go. Take your time, read it carefully, and we will discuss that more in the days ahead. All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.